Ponzi Scheme, Charles Ponzi. Charles Ponzi's scheme in 1920 promised investors 50% profit in 45 days or double their money in 90. He claimed he exploited international postage arbitrage using international reply coupons, buying them cheaply overseas, and redeeming them for US stamps. In reality, the logistics made this impossible. The coupons were never purchased in scale. Ponzi simply recycled money from new investors to pay earlier ones, creating the illusion of success. Early participants received real payouts, spread word of easy riches, and encouraged others to join. At its peak, Ponzi controlled between $10 and $15 million from 40,000 investors. The structure, however, was unsustainable. Once withdrawals surged and new inflows slowed, the scheme collapsed. The warning signs were classic: guaranteed, unusually high returns, consistent payouts regardless of market conditions, and secrecy about actual operations. What made Ponzi so effective was simplicity, or a story anyone could grasp, backed by early evidence of profit that overrode skepticism. Bucket shops. Bucket shops mimicked legitimate brokerages, but never executed trades on real exchanges. Instead, they recorded bets on stock movements, discarding client orders. If the client guessed wrong, the shop profited. If they guessed right, the shop often refused to pay. Clients were drawn in by low entry requirements compared to genuine brokers. Inside, chalkboards displayed manipulated or delayed prices. Even when customers appeared to win, shops could vanish overnight and reopen under new names. The key marker was misalignment of incentives. The shop was the counterparty, not an intermediary. Customers never owned stock certificates, only slips of paper representing bets. These operations thrived before strong securities regulation, selling the illusion of investing while functioning like casinos stacked against participants. Boiler rooms. Boiler rooms relied on aggressive sales calls, pushing worthless shares in obscure companies. Operators packed salesmen into cramped offices, armed with scripts that created urgency and credibility. Victims were told they had insider access, that others were already profiting, and that time was running out. The pressure left little room for research. Payments were usually mailed, and by the time investors realized the stock was worthless, the operation had closed or rebranded. Tactics revolved around urgency. This opportunity closes today. Social proof. Others are buying in. And authority. Experts recommend this. With limited disclosure laws for small company stock, boiler rooms flourished. They sold not investments but stories, designed to short-circuit critical thinking. Florida, mail order, land sales. In the 1920s, Florida was marketed as America's paradise. Ads promised tropical living and quick profits. Buyers across the country mailed in down payments for lots they had never seen. Swampland was sold as waterfront, and parcels without road access were advertised as buildable. The system encouraged flipping. Buyers paid 10% upfront, then resold before the balance came due. Land functioned as a speculative token, traded repeatedly regardless of its true value. The collapse came when credit tightened, skepticism grew, and hurricanes in 1926 and 1928 devastated the region. Investors discovered their deeds were worthless, and Florida's economy crashed years before the Great Depression. The red flags were clear: heavy reliance on advertising over inspection, small down payments encouraging speculation rather than ownership, and a disconnect between glowing brochures and physical reality. Work-at-home franchise fees. Targeting families rather than investors, work-at-home scams promised easy income through exclusive franchises or starter kits. Victims paid upfront fees for materials like mailing lists or instruction manuals, only to find them useless. The model was self-perpetuating. Once the first fee was paid, victims were pressured to buy better lists, upgraded tools, or extra training. None produced real income. Losses were often small per household, but spread nationwide, they became significant. The rise of legitimate direct sales blurred lines. Companies like Avon showed home selling could succeed, but imitators used the same language to mask pyramid-like recruiting. Fraudulent versions emphasized recruitment, not product sales, ensuring profits flowed upward while newcomers lost. Warning signs included upfront payments, unrealistic income claims, lack of tangible products, and pressure to recruit others. These scams spread widely because they targeted ordinary households seeking modest, practical income. Chain letters. Chain letters spread by mail instructed participants to send small sums to names on a list, then add their own name and forward copies to new people. Supposedly, once a name rose to the top, the sender would receive hundreds of payments. The flaw was mathematical. A letter requiring 10 new copies grew exponentially. Within a few rounds, it demanded more participants than existed. Only the earliest entrants profited, while most at the bottom lost. Chain letters thrived because they were simple, cheap, and seemed harmless. The act of mailing copies created the illusion of effort leading to reward, but legally they were lotteries. Participants paid money for the chance of return without product or service exchanged. Postal inspectors fought to suppress them, but their simplicity kept them alive. The structure itself was the red flag. Returns came solely from new recruits, not from real value, ensuring inevitable collapse once growth slowed. Patent medicine shows. Patent medicine promoters turned entertainment into sales. Traveling shows mixed comedy and music with pitches for miracle cures. Bottles were sold as treatments for everything from headaches to tuberculosis. Shills planted in audiences swore the medicine had worked wonders. The secrecy of ingredients was part of the fraud. Most concoctions contained alcohol, opium, or harmless fillers. Some gave temporary relief because of addictive substances, which encouraged repeat purchases. Others did nothing at all. The model thrived in towns with limited medical access. Audiences desperate for solutions bought hope in a bottle. Because promoters moved constantly, complaints rarely caught up. The early 20th century saw reform. The Pure Food and Drug Act, and later the FDA and FTC, cracked down, requiring disclosure and banning false claims. By then, millions had spent money and often harmed their health. The consistent red flags were universal claims, secret formulas, staged testimonials, and entertainment-style sales over medical consultation, perpetual motion and invention frauds. Technology optimism created space for inventors promising impossible breakthroughs. Perpetual motion machines, free energy devices, and miracle agricultural or medical inventions were pitched to investors. Demonstrations seemed convincing, but were staged, often hiding batteries or external power. Harry Perigo's 1917 presentation to Congress epitomized the fraud. He claimed to draw power from invisible ether waves. Investigators later found hidden motors. By then, he had already secured funds. These schemes thrived because they looked scientific. Inventors used jargon, wore professional attire, and exploited the public's limited technical knowledge. Investors believed they were buying into the next industrial revolution. Red flags included devices that only worked under controlled demonstrations, refusal to disclose details, vast but vague promises, and requests for continual funding without progress. Invention frauds show how easily cultural faith in progress can be weaponized. What was sold was not machinery, but visions of a future that never arrived.